Hello and welcome back to Raze Gaming. My name is Olo and today we're talking more boss weapons. Quite a few months back we talked about the boss weapons and how I rated them on a tier list. Interestingly, boss weapons are the ones that had the most variance for me, say some being really good and some being absolutely abysmal, shockingly bad. Well, since then we've had multiple patches, things have changed, and also my opinion as I've got more experience has changed as well. Alright, we have our tier list ready to go and it's kind of a weird one. We have S, A, B, C as normal, but we also have D and F compared to our normal list. The reason it jumps from D to F is there's only one weapon I consider just trash at this point that I really wouldn't say use it at all. And then I think we need 5 grades to fairly judge everything else. But remember, this is boss weapons versus boss weapons, their ratings against one another, not the rest of the weapons in the game. So on that note, I'd like to start with Maliketh's Black Blade, the Colossal Sword. Previously, I rated this as an A grade, but now I'm putting it as an S grade. I believe I underrated this in the original boss weapon list, especially when we consider patch 1.04, which improved the attack speed and damage of colossal weapons in two-hand, making this weapon, even just like its basic attacks, very strong. If you choose to use this weapon and then just crouch poke spam and that's it, it's going to be extremely effective and one of the most effective boss weapons you can use, which is very stupid, but it's true. On that note, it's got a great moveset, it's got a great range of attacks, and the attack speed of those attacks is awesome. Then you have Destined Death, which is an effect that occurs when you use this Ash of War, which has hyper armor, so you can trade with it or go ham on a boss with it. This will reduce the enemy's health by 10% while they're affected by it, and deal damage over time. This can be done in AoE with this Ash of War, which is incredible, but it's awesome in single target all the same, be it on a boss or a player. You can stack Destined Death with the other Destined Death effects of the game, like the incantation, making this even more effective. So yeah, not much more to say on this one. I just underrated it personally, and through more experience, I just see that it's one of the better boss weapons now. How about another weapon that's gone up in a tier to A grade? This is Morgott's Cursed Blade. In patch 1.06 and 1.04, this weapon saw buffs both times, with its Ash of War and its basic moveset, specifically when two-handing it rather than power sensing it. In 1.04, its Ash of War had both its cast speed increased and the recovery time, making it more effective at just spamming it, as well as more evasive and survivable because you're not stuck in the animation quite as long. Then in 1.06, very importantly, the base power of this weapon was increased. They've essentially improved the attack speed of the weapon. You've got better speed on your heavy attacks as well as your charge attacks, as well as better evasion because you can evade faster after an attack now as well. With these changes, I went to test this and made a build around this and found the weapon to be surprisingly solid. I mean, it's got effective bleed build up. In combination with, say, a nice incantation of, say, Swarm of Flies, you can hyper pressure someone with that incantation and the Ash of War together easily. It's got base bleed build up, and due to its arcane scaling, you can improve the threat of that, as well as enjoy the nice curved greatsword moveset. Good range, fairly fast attacks, good damage. I genuinely believe this weapon has become much better than it once was, and it deserves to go from my original B rating to an A rating. It's a good weapon. How about another weapon that I've taken up a grade to A grade as well? This is, of course, the final boss weapon, the Sacred Relic Sword, which has always had good stats and a very damaging, incredible Ash of War, the one that we use to farm runes most effectively. Brilliant for open world combat, pretty damn effective if you've got the space to use it in a boss fight. 1.06 also increased the power of two-handed greatswords by making their recovery after an attack better, so you can roll after an attack quicker, as well as, yes, the faster motion speed on strong and charge attacks. So that does make the weapon a bit more effective at its baseline, but that only applies when you're two-handing it rather than power stancing it, which I think is where greatswords often shine. Sticking at an A grade, it's certainly not an S grade. That Ash of War is just very easy to avoid and leaves you vulnerable. Maybe if you could feint out of it, that would be the difference it needs. Next up then, we have the Axe of Godfrey, which has gone from my previous pretty aggressive rating of F to a C grade, which is a bit more reasonable. I do not think this weapon is good, and I think it's just due to the weapon itself just being a massive disappointment. As an incredible boss weapon, the very Axe of Godfrey himself, which has a powerful roar, unlocking a new moveset and increasing your AR, it sounds amazing, and then it's just not. As a colossal weapon, we can get over 1100 AR when buffed up correctly, and alongside the better attack speed in 1.04 for colossal weapons, it makes the basic trading deadly and viable for this weapon. It's just the special moveset aka the whole purpose and point and uniqueness of this weapon, is bad and you won't really use it. The Ash of War sucks in PvP and is awkward at best in PvE. Even though the Ash of War recovery was improved in 1.04, it just isn't enough. It needs a faster animation. Of course, this weapon could win, and that's why I put it at a C grade. You buff it up and then use it like any other colossal weapon. Even if it's a unique boss weapon, you totally ignore that fact. Still, it's a hugely disappointing weapon for me just conceptually, and not a good pick generally, but I can't leave it at an F grade, and it's better than a D grade as well. On the other hand, I can't believe it, but the Axe of Godrick is actually pretty damn good, and I brought it up from a D grade to a C grade, and I might even consider it better than the Axe of Godfrey, and yeah, I probably do. This axe actually has an interesting moveset, an axe moveset, unlike Godfrey's. While its AR is lower, it has new attack speed buffs in 1.06, and that's big. Due to its better attack speed as a great axe in two-hand, you can trade surprisingly well with surprising range in PvP. And it comes with a unique heavy attack combo, which is, while, yeah, still unlikely to hit, it's much more relevant because it also had a speed buff to that. Overall, just those facts I've stated make it a relevant weapon in PvE, much more than it once was. And the Ash of War was also buffed in 1.04, coming out faster and even having a cancel, so you can roll out of it if you want to. We can follow that up with other attacks, or a follow-up L2 to do the final slam. That seems to catch people out, maybe because they're not used to seeing this weapon. But in single target PvE, the damage of the Ash of War is not good. A fun AoE ability or PvP option. Undeniably, this weapon is better, but I still feel like the AR could do with like a little bit of work, so I put it at a C grade above a D. Speaking of a D grade, I am keeping this weapon at the same rating, the Winged Greathorn. As another great axe, it has the same buffs as Godrick, that attack speed buff, and then also faster rolling after an attack, assuming you're two-handing and not power stancing, which is an important detail. Both nice changes, but it's not enough to change the weapon fully. I mean, its damage is still low and the moveset is dull. It's not got any unique stuff like Godrick. The unique aspect of this weapon really is its Ash of War, placing a cloud on top of you, which will lower enemy resistances, which in turn makes them take more damage. Neat conceptually, and you can make that happen in PvE and do some more damage there, but it's never really going to happen in PvP. People can easily avoid it and just choose not to fight you within it. It's also not even that relevant if you do hit them with it because it's not a major damage increase. Overall, the output is low and the weapon just does not bring much threat. It's still a cool design, but it's let down by that boring moveset and low output. The attack speed is nice, don't get me wrong. You can catch people out in surprising combos with that, but it just needs more love as a weapon, so I keep it at a D. Another weapon at D grade that I brought down from a C from last time is the Grafted Dragon. This is the fist weapon or the dragon weapon from Godrick, and much the same as before, it's just a fist weapon. Tiny range, low damage, you're never going to trade with someone with that, but you can use the Ash of War and blow up the area around you, which is neat and fun. We found some interesting interactions with effects like this. If you were to use Blood Flame Blade or the Black Flame Blade, you could enhance the damage of this Ash of War, but it's still unlikely to do much in any content. So I feel like I overrated it at a C grade last time, so I brought it down to a D. While we're down here then, let's look at Bastard Stars. Hilariously much worse than the Wing of Astel, which is not even a boss weapon, just found in a chest. Conceptually, design-wise, this weapon is cooler, but so much more significantly weak that really the Wing of Astel should have been the boss weapon. Flails are a cool new weapon type in Elden Ring, but they're just not good. Tiny range, tiny damage, just an ineffective weapon. It has a cool Ash of War, but it's literally the worst Ash of War between Wing of Astel and this one, even though the animation is cooler. This weapon just needs some specific love. Other weapons have been targeted and called out, nerfed, or specifically buffed, and yet this one just ignored. Still an F grade for me. Alright, let's talk about some of the other weapons then, such as Blasphemous Blade, which still remains an S grade weapon. Due to its incredible passives, yeah, it gives you lifesteal. When you deal damage with it, it'll give you lifesteal. It has that Ash of War, the fiery long-range attack, which is incredible, and on top of all of that, it's a great sword, so in power stance, it's going to be great. A very effective weapon. That sword buffs in 1.06 when two-handing it. As I've explained, two-handing a greatsword isn't a great idea because I think they shine best in power stance, so it's not too relevant, but nice early game if you're gonna pick up this weapon for a playthrough. I think it still remains one of the best options in the entire game just because of how versatile it is and how it fits into so many builds. Technically, it's been improved as well because now it's better when two-handing instead of power stance, so yeah, still obviously an S grade. Another S grade that remains that for boss weapons, that would be Mawgwins Spear. An arcane weapon of very strong potential. A huge AoE dealing bleed damage that's incredible in single target, in PvP, in AoE, and as a great spear it has that running heavy, which is one of the best running heavies in the entire game. Good damage, and it even does more damage after using the Ash of War, buffing it up with that Cursed Blood Fire. This is an iconic boss weapon. It's what a boss weapon should be. The weapon that the boss used that's very effective and very cool. There's not much more to say about it. It remains an S grade, untouched by patches. Another S grade that remains incredible then has to be the Carian Regal Scepter, this of course being Ronans Scepter. The second best pure int staff in the game. This comes from the fact that it is an S scaling intelligence staff and it has bonus damage on your moon spells. So if you're doing a moon build, this is the one for you. You could argue it's the best staff in the game as well because it doesn't have the extra FP cost of the, well, quote unquote best option. If you're doing a build that really wants the best scaling on intelligence but without extra FP cost, yeah, it's just the go-to option. It also has a fun Ash of War with the spinning attack of it. It's a great weapon, definitely an S tier pick, and pretty much the only staff on the list anyway. What about our very empty B grade area? I keep this heavy piercing weapon, the Dragon King's Crag Blade, at a B rating. It's got good damage thanks to its physical and lightning damage, so it's very easy to buff this up and really get big damage. The Ash of War not only looks incredible, but has iframes during it, and I only see this very rarely in PvP, despite how neat it is. Another unique passive comes in play in PvE because it does extra damage to dragons as well. So while I think this weapon isn't the most unique looking or interesting design, it is solid and effective. A reasonable weapon to use in a playthrough, but certainly not overpowered. That's why I keep it at a B grade. Now, one that I actually had at a B grade before was Marikas Hammer, and I'm gonna put that back down to a C grade this time. The reason for that is because hammers are another unloved weapon type in Elden Ring. Essentially untouched in these patches for some reason, they have low range and low damage. I love the concept of them because they have a fun moveset. It looks good and it feels good to use. You're going to break through posture and shields with these things. And the Marikas Hammer in particular has that incredible Ash of War, which was buffed to come down quicker, much faster animation. The damage of that Ash of War is very good, and is essentially the only threat of this weapon in PvP. Fun to use, but not that strong. I don't think it was fair for me to put it at a B grade. It really is middle of the pack, C grade. A weapon that I will keep at A grade though, probably the lowest on the A grade, is the Hand of Melania Katana. It's fine, right? It's just a cool looking weapon. It's a katana. It's got some built-in bleed, but you can't actually improve that bleed because it's a boss weapon. You can't change the affinity to blood to give it arcane scaling. So it's got long range and that katana moveset, which is good. And of course, in power stance with another katana, that's going to be fantastic. The Ash of War, the waterfall dance, is iconic, very fun to use in PvE and PvP if you can actually land it. Because for some reason it has no hyper armor, you can very easily be interrupted out of it. As a boss weapon, I think it rates highly because it's got good scaling on your dex. But if we were talking about weapons in general, it's like one of the worst katanas because it's got the lower scaling. Still, it's an incredibly cool boss weapon, and I still rate it highly because it has strong output compared to the other weapons on this list. You could argue that it's a B grade with the Dragon Crag Blade, but I just love it so much, it needs to be A grade for me. The potential of the Ash of War is very high. But another weapon I like in A grade is Redans Swords. The Star Scourge Great Swords are very cool. They've got great stats, great AR, they're going to be effective in both PvE and PvP. You just need to be a bit smart in PvP with them. It's got a limited moveset because it's a unique weapon where you only have one of them, you are dual wielding them. So you have a limited moveset where you can only really do power stance attacks or a heavy attack with one. It'd be cool if you could do like a joint heavy attack since they're like the duo weapon. But despite that simple moveset, it's still very effective. Big damage, it's going to stagger enemies, it's a colossal weapon, and the Ash of War is incredible, pulling people in and then blowing everything up. However, you don't want to get stuck in that animation in PvP in the wrong way, so you do need to be a bit clever with it. It has surprising range on that explosion and pull-in though, and that's how I try to use it in PvP. Many people use this weapon in their first playthrough, and I can completely understand why, but remains an A tier pick rather than S tier because it doesn't have insane output and it has that dry moveset. Alright, second to last, we have another C grade pick. The Giant's Red Braid is a fun and weird weapon. Literally the braid of the Red Giant. It does okay damage and it's a fun moveset because it's a whip. While you will take on a personal challenge to use them because they aren't as crazy effective as other weapons, you need to be smart with these. They certainly can and do work. The problem with this whip in particular is that there's bleed whips, and the bleed whips are just better. Its Ash of War has you spinning an attack of fire around you with a satisfying snap, which unfortunately holds you in position, you cannot cancel it, and its range is just okay. So while I like this weapon and I can use it in PvP, it takes some real effort to make it work. But lastly, we have a ranged weapon also in the C grade still. The Redans Great Bow is Redans bow. It does have that pretty damn good Ash of War, spamming arrows on a target for good damage. If you catch people out with that in PvP, it can do a lot, which is best in invasions compared to duels where they're obviously focusing you, attacking from massive range, which can lead to some fun shenanigans in both PvE and PvP. But of course, you're going to be held in place. It's just not as effective as, say, a longbow or a short bow in PvP. It also uniquely benefits from Redans Great Arrows, high damage per shot, so it's a solid Great Bow option if you're wanting that, but as a weapon, I put it squarely in the middle. But there you have it. That is my final tier list for the boss weapons in the current patch of 1.06. I'm happier with this list compared to my original, and I'm also very happy to see how many weapons have actually changed in terms of the meta and how the devs have addressed them. Still, some are lacking and need more love, as I've mentioned, but let me know what you think of this list. Is this order correct? What would you change? For now though, that is the video. I quite enjoy these tier lists giving me an excuse to go use weird weapons like some of these boss weapons. And if you enjoyed it, please do drop a like so we can keep making more content. Otherwise, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.